people are suffering. People who are coming back from Iraq are suffering. Their families are suffering. The Iraqis are suffering. The children are suffering. But it's important that we as a society come to grips with that, comes to grips with the amount of suffering that's going on and not block it out. Well, you know, the thing about television media is that it reaches millions of people and can have a profound effect, you know, and start things in motion that otherwise wouldn't be so easily be started in motion. I think one of the things that I would do is I would bring together a group of people, maybe a couple of Iraq veterans, men and women who have fought in the war, maybe their spouses, their parents, other people who are really deeply affected by the war and wanting to do something. And I would do it in a way to really try to depoliticize it. Our basic worldview comes from our earliest experiences in infancy, in utero and in infancy. And if that is an environment that's supportive, that's nurturing, that's basically how we model the world. And if on the other hand we're exposed with threat and danger and violence and stress, then our basic perception of the world is as a dangerous place. And we have a basic stance towards it of fearfulness, of anxiety. Because if we don't do this again, they're going to be frightening and traumatizing their kids, and their kids are going to grow up more susceptible and more likely to be carrying trauma themselves, and we're just passing this on from generation to generation, and they're going to be again that next generation is again more likely to be susceptible to road rage at a global scale. I mean, that clearly is what happened, in my opinion, in the Iraq War. Is Bush, like many of us, you know, after that event, we were in a sense collectively traumatized. Basically, trauma happens when we're exposed to a threatening event and overwhelmed by it, and then not able to bounce back. I mean, I could go through pages of clinical diagnostic category information, but really, in essence, that's what trauma is about. Okay, first we have to understand how trauma comes about and how physical an event it is. So you're driving on the highway, and all of a sudden somebody just pulls out in front of you and almost causes a catastrophic accident.
I know when that happens to me, I can feel my hair standing on end.
Right, your hair stands on end. It's like almost every single hair is standing up. You may be sweating, you may be trembling, your hands may be very cold, you feel charged up as though with adrenaline. Sometimes the urge is to get out and really almost to strangle the person who cut you off.
Well, I certainly know I've let go of a few expletives in
Right.
in the course of something like that happen, but you're right, often it does have such a physical character.
Right, and the expletives is really kind of a substitute for the fight response, for wanting to kill the person who just about killed you. I mean, these things are fundamentally biological. We share them with all mammals, and they're about survival. And these are about the basic reactions of fight, flight, and freezing. And each of these has its function. The flight response is to get out away from the threatening event. The fight response is to destroy the source of threat. And the freezing response is what happens when we perceive that there is no escape, that we're unable to fight or to flee, then we paralyze in fear. There's something like a helicopter or a backfire of a car, and the Iraq veteran or the Vietnam veteran or the World War II veteran is, again, right back in the battlefield. Mm-hmm. The same physiological reactions are going on. The trembling, the sweating, the cold hands, the hair standing on edge, the racing heart, the knot in the gut. It's like it never went away. And the reason it never went away is because we weren't able to discharge the energy that prepared us for fighting and fleeing. And that's one of the things that really isn't considered in the more conventional understanding and definitions of trauma, the energy. Yeah, the energy that's mobilized is a very real physical occurrence. I know of several examples where a mother has lifted up the corner of a car to pull her child out who got trapped, whose legs got trapped underneath the tire. That takes an incredible exertion of physical energy to do that. So that's what I mean. This is the kind of energy that's mobilized when we're threatened or somebody we love is threatened. And it's not about getting the memory or even the effect of the memory, but of how much energy has to be released and cannot be integrated into the organism. So that's it. So this energy gets locked down here. Now, what would happen if this energy released all at once? It would be tremendously bursting of energy, and it would be chaotic. And the slinky was invented basically so I could use for this purpose. Quite frequently, more often than not, I think, traumatized people go through life, as though they were normal, except under certain situations. And these are people, I've worked with so many people who are tremendously successful in their work, in their chosen profession, but when they come into the therapy session, that all of a sudden, when they allow themselves to access these sensations, they couldn't be functioning at the same time as doing that, which tells you again why they keep a lid on it. But in a safe situation, if the person is able to access these patterns of holding, and then by becoming aware of them, releasing them. And now, again, it's not a voluntary thing. You can't say, okay, the shoulders are up like this, right? You can't say, okay, relax your shoulders, so the person puts their shoulders down like that. Rather, what happens is, okay, the shoulders are here, and really what they were doing is protecting perhaps against getting hit by a parent, right, or a bully. And so what happens is when the person becomes aware of this tension in their shoulders and their neck, and they focus on this tension, then they get the sense of, okay, so what do the shoulders want to do? And the shoulders want to actually go up even higher, and then there's the feeling of the neck turning away and wanting to pull away, and then the trunk wanting to pull away, you see? And then as this is happening, there's this gentle shaking and trembling happens. One time I did a training workshop in Israel for Israeli and Palestinian people. And I worked with this Israeli man who had chronic back problems for 30 years. And when we focused on what was underneath the pain, it was a certain tension in his muscles. And then that led to a turning and then a feeling of falling back. And then he was reliving being ambushed and then having the men and falling off the back of his truck and seeing his men have their heads cut off with swords and shot. And I mean, just horrible, horrible, horrible thing. And he went through this, and you could see that he was healing it, that he was no longer locked in physical pain and emotional pain. And I could see that everybody in the group was really just mesmerized. And I asked if anybody wanted to share some of their feeling. And a woman stood up, psychologist from Gaza Mental Health. And she said, you know, Chaim, when you started to work with Dr. Levine, I wanted something bad to happen to you. I didn't want you to have anything good come of it. Because I hated you, I hate your people. Your people have tortured my people, have humiliated my people, and I have nothing but hatred. But when I saw you work and I felt you work, something deep inside me shifted. And I realized that until we find peace within ourselves, we'll never find peace with each other. And you could just feel everybody just let go.